Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions, yes, sir.
No, you'll be happy.
During your deposition, what were the circumstances under which you decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Under somebody call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition.
É um circo. Isso é um circo. O cara é psiquiatra, mas parece que ele que é o louco.
Bubbles, we holding our liquor down. If it's a problem, I'll go to the bar and I shut it down. Get out my section, don't bother with lames. I'm watching these bunnies bounce. Shorty, you 10, the rubber band, come on for the 100 pound. All of the talk, but don't run them out. I'm trying to be out. It's when we leave.
Ele literalmente chamou Johnny Depp de idiota. O que acontece é o seguinte. A defesa, o time da Amber, tinha 8 horas no dia de ontem. E passou mais da metade do dia falando com esses experts. E se eu não me engano, 45 minutos falando com o Dr. Spiegel. E o Wayne, que é o advogado, do time de advogado do Johnny Depp, destruiu tudo que ele falou. Porque ele não conversou com o Johnny, quer dizer, ele deu um diagnóstico, entre aspas, sem ter conversado com o Johnny, chamou o Johnny de idiota no seu depoimento, e a análise dele foi baseada no que a Amber falou. E em filme, sim, ele utilizou os filmes da franquia Piratas do Caribe para dar diagnóstico. E o Wayne fez um trabalho brilhante em demonstrar esse absurdo. Além de que mostrou que ele não é essa autoridade expert toda que ele diz, porque o business dele, mais de 50% do business dele é em relação a trauma. E somente, se eu não me engano, ele falou 5% do business dele é em relação a IPV, que é a sigla em inglês para abusos entre cônjuges, que seja psicológico, físico ou financeiro. E eu tô aqui com o iPad do FBI para a gente fazer essa análise, tá? E aí é o seguinte, o Wayne trouxe essa questão, provavelmente você já está vendo aí, o Goldwater Rule, tá? O que diz o Goldwater Rule? É um statement, tá? É um statement de ética, primeiramente iniciado pela a Associação de Psiquiatria da América em 1973, restringindo psiquiatras de especular sobre o estado mental de figuras públicas. E você acredita que no depoimento ele ainda você vai ver aí, eu vou colocar aqui traduzido, legendado para você, você ainda vai ver que ele ainda argumenta se Johnny Depp é uma figura pública ou não. Quer dizer, cara, o Dr. Spiegel não avaliou Johnny Depp. Consequentemente, tudo que ele falar ali está amplamente descreditado. Diferente da Dr. Curry, que a Dr. Curry passou 12 horas conversando com a Amber, fora que teve acesso a todos os áudios, a todas as gravações. Então, o diagnóstico da Dr. Curry é muito mais crível, muito mais profissional e ético. A Dr. Curry passou 12 horas conversando com a Amber e diagnosticou a Amber com transtorno de borderline e personalidade histriônica. O transtorno de personalidade borderline é caracterizado por um padrão generalizado de instabilidade e hipersensibilidade nos relacionamentos interpessoais, instabilidade de autoimagem, flutuações extremas de humor e impulsividade. E histriônica, pessoas que agem demasiadamente sexy, tá? E sedutoras, a fim de conseguir o que eles querem. Tá aqui, ó. Pacientes com transtorno de personalidade histriônica usam sua aparência física agindo de forma inadequadamente sedutora ou provocadora para chamar a atenção dos outros. Eles não têm um senso de autodireção e são altamente sugestionáveis, muitas vezes agindo de forma submissa para reter a atenção dos outros, vulgo manipulação. E tem um detalhe, o pessoal lá nos States já está começando a cavar no passado desse cara. E tem algumas coisas assim tensas dele como psiquiatra. Por exemplo, quando você olha nesse testemunho que está no Google, olha o nível de testemunho que estão colocando aqui no Google. Isso aqui foi 3 anos atrás, galera. Isso aqui não é fã do Johnny Depp. E a Lea Talífero está dizendo: Dr. Spiegel, meu padrasto se suicidou. Ele também era alcoólico. Ele era paciente do Dr. Spiegel por anos. Prescrevia medicação para ele. E ele nunca fez o follow-up. E depois do padrasto dela se suicidar, ele nunca ligou de volta. É complicado. Mas vamos lá. Vou dar o play aqui.
Was the Goldwater rule.
Yes, sir.
This is an ethical rule, right?
It is an ethical rule. And yes, it's ethical. They say rules. It's an ethical guideline. Yes, they're guidelines.
Over time, the American Psychiatric Association has amended the rule so it's not just about diagnoses, but it's also about professional opinions. Let me read this and see if you're familiar with it. It is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual based on publicly available information without conducting an examination. That's the rule, right?
If you're reading it directly, I will believe you.
Okay. However, a diagnosis is not required for an opinion to be professional. So my question is, it's not just diagnosis that this Goldwater rule applies to, it's professional opinions.
If that was the case, there could be no expert witness testimony in the courtroom.
Psychiatrists are ethically prohibited from evaluating individuals without permission or other authorization, such as a court order. That's the rule, right?
This whole thing on expert, we might as well get rid of all the expert witnesses we've had throughout all of time. You are essentially saying that unless someone has directly evaluated it, this whole medical system we have, this whole legal system we have, is null and void.
I'm not saying.
No, yes, you are, sir. No, you are.
Give me a second.
So I am a member of the APA. That doesn't necessarily mean every single thing they put in there, everybody has to uncategorically agree with, because clearly that's not the case.
Did you agree in your deposition that the professional opinions you rendered were inconsistent with the Goldwater rule?
Yeah. My first was inconsistent. If we're saying it's not made for Hollywood, but I'll even take that Mr. Depp's a public figure.
Asking you, sir, is did you comply with the ethical requirements of the APA when rendering the professional opinions that you've rendered today?
It is a requirement of the APA. It is not the requirement of the APA. Secondarily,
so the answer is no?
Secondarily. So all I'm saying to you, that means the whole field of medical legal law is corrupt and unethical for engaging in an act that the APA clearly says we should not do. And the answer is yes, I'm agreeing with that statement.
You're agreeing that the APA would deem your testimony and your professional opinions rendered unethical.
I'm an expert witness. As an expert witness, and solely as an expert witness, that guideline is permitting that from occurring.
And you said the rule was for presidents, right? And
that was initially
figures,
for presidents, yes.
And the name of the rule came from that. But the rule says it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual.
If you say this about an individual, any court would have to render an expert witness testimony invalid.
And it's a departure from the methods of the profession to render an opinion without an examination and without conducting an evaluation in accordance with the standards of psychiatric practice, correct?
Well, again, by the way, for the record, intimate partner violence is not a psychiatric diagnosis. I'll start with that. Substance usage by themselves is not a psychiatric diagnosis. If you want to cut to the chase, psychiatric use is not a diagnosis of that. Narcissistic personality traits is not a diagnosis. Ergo, I am basically commenting on the things that were brought to me, which are not diagnosis. But an evaluation, if I was going to treat a patient or anyone here, those are the steps I would take. And therefore, what I'm saying is neither IPV nor substance usage, nor narcissistic personality traits a psychiatric diagnosis. And then under the rubric of expert witness testimony, you are saying I acted unethically under the rubric of expert witness testimony. So if you, sir, would like to proceed that expert witnesses are unethical, based on that, I am not going to sit here and disagree with you and waste everyone's time. I think it's fairly obvious. But thank you. Go ahead.
Let's start with the easy question then. Maybe we can...
That was pretty easy. Go ahead.
All right, doctor, you're going to have to just answer the questions.
Tomou chamada da juíza. Tá? Tomou chamada da juíza. Isso acontece mais umas 2 vezes. Dá só uma olhada.
You are not rendering any diagnosis whatsoever of Mr. Depp today or ever.
No, I probably would say to you that certainly I would not say narcissistic personality, or I would say traits. Certainly, from what I have read, intimate partner violence is not a diagnosis. So the answer is no for that. Narcissistic personality traits is not a diagnosis. The answer is no. But if you want to tell me that substance use disorder is a psychiatric diagnosis, the answer is yes.
But that wasn't an issue, was it? Whether Mr. Depp used substances.
Oh, so you're saying he's already admitted to the diagnosis?
He's already admitted to the use of the substances. Oh. Narcissistic personality disorder is a DSM-5 diagnosis, correct?
Correct. It's a provisional diagnosis, probably narcissistic personality disorder. But yeah, I mean, I do believe that.
Ele acabou de dizer que não é um diagnóstico. O advogado está sabendo mais do que ele.
When you say provisional diagnosis, you know the DSM-5 requires, in order to find that diagnosis, 5 of the 9 factors. Mm-hmm. And you haven't done that analysis. You've never made that diagnosis. You've just identified certain factors.
That are criteria for the diagnosis.
Right. But you need 5 of 9 to get to the diagnosis. You've already told us that you didn't make a diagnosis. You're just identifying traits, correct?
I'm identifying traits that are consistent with the diagnosis, yes.
Right. Did you testify in deposition that the existence of traits, as opposed to the disorder, doesn't have a correlation with IPV?
If I said traits do not have a correlation with if that's what I said, and I don't remember saying that. Narcissism has a correlation with the diagnosis. Yes, that part's true. Narcissism has correlation with IPV. Again, you're not allowing me to answer. Narcissism absolutely has risk factors associated with IPV.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV, yes or no?
Yes.
And you previously testified that there is no literature at which you are currently aware that the mere presence of narcissistic traits is a risk factor for IPV.
That's incorrect.
You didn't testify.
Isso aqui foi genial. Ele está dizendo que Johnny Depp ele tem um distúrbio de personalidade narcisista, o que é um diagnóstico. E ele falou que não era, e é. E antes ele falou que ele não tinha diagnosticado do Johnny, tá? E aí o advogado vem e fala, bom, já que você não diagnosticou e já que você está simplesmente dizendo que ele tem traços de personalidade narcisista, você não consegue citar nenhuma publicação científica dizendo que isso é um preditor de IPV.
Every resource on intimate partners will support that cluster B traits, where narcissistic personality falls under, is a risk factor for intimate partner.
Any narcissistic trait, in and of itself, is a risk factor for IPV.
Claro que não.
But you are mischaracterizing what I said. And I'm not sure, the thing I don't understand is, I'm not sure why we're arguing psychiatry, because I'm telling you what it is.
Dr. Siegel, you just need to answer the question.
Segundo.
Borderline personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
As part of cluster B traits, yes.
Histrionic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
Less so. Significantly less so.
All right. So
Isso aqui também foi genial, velho. O cara foi lá para depor a favor da Amber Heard, tá? A Amber Heard tá pagando ele $1.000 o dia. Sim, $1.000 o dia pra estar ali. E, além do advogado do Johnny destruir tudo que ele tá falando, ele ainda botou ele pra testemunhar contra a Amber. Porque ele falou, Dr. Spiegel, pessoas que têm distúrbio borderline são pessoas que são propensas a agredir as outras, são propensas a fazer IPV? Ele falou, sim. E pessoas com personalidade histriônicas? Sim, muito menos, mas sim. Então, basicamente, agora ele está depondo a favor do Johnny.
one diagnosis in court of personality disorders, correct?
Are you referring to Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard? Who? I'm not sure what you were talking about.
Do you understand that there was a medical examination done of Ms. Heard?
Yes, I did.
Do you understand that the testimony was ultimately that Ms. Heard suffers from 2 personality disorders? Yes or no to my question?
Which was there's only one diagnosis of. Ms. Heard was diagnosed with that.
Yeah. And both of the diagnoses are in cluster B, and both of them are risk factors for IPV.
I'm not allowed to comment on the testing, so therefore, all I can say is that cluster B trace, and I'll tell you what they are. And by the way, I testified this before, which was that, 1, I don't expect perfection from my victims. 2,
Victims! Minhas vítimas! Ele falou minhas vítimas! Isso aqui é genial, velho! Minhas vítimas, velho! Com certeza o Johnny Depp é uma vítima dele. Com certeza. Cara, que isso. Não, agora sim. Vai bater todos os recordes, tá? Agora ele vai dizer que baseado... Mano, vamos assistir. Vamos lá.
You compared pirates to the to the depositions given in this case.
Then I apologize for what I said. Then I misspoke.
You misspoke? You didn't make the comparison?
Right now, just a second ago? Just a second ago, I may have said that I misspoke. I apologize, I misspoke.
Okay.
Aqui ele tá pedindo desculpa, tá? Ele tá pedindo desculpa porque ele falou errado. E aí ele usa o filme do Pirata do Caribe pra dizer, ó, você tá vendo? Ele é meio lento, ele tem problemas aqui e tal. Um completo absurdo. Mas vamos lá, vamos ver.
You see him in that movie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Did you look at that one when you were comparing his processing speed?
Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
No, you'll be happy to know I didn't see Willy Wonka, I didn't see 21 Jump Street when it happened, or whatever it was about. No, I did not. One was of trauma, but not IPV.
Right. And you've never presented on the topic of IPV specifically.
As a function of trauma and as a function of somatic illness, again, I would say to you that it's part and parcel of these illnesses. So the answer is yes, I have. Okay?
All right.
The answer is yes, I have.
And IPV doesn't appear in your CV at all.
If you say it's not in my CV, I will believe you. There's a lot of things that are not in my CV.
And you're not associated with any professional literature on IPV. Is there any professional literature that you've contributed to relative to IPV specifically as opposed to trauma generally?
The answer to the question again, sir, is that you cannot separate this artificial separation you are trying to do between trauma and intimate partner violence.
Asking you about
Agora vem a parte que todo mundo tava esperando, tá? A testemunha da Amber chamou Johnny Depp de idiota enquanto estava depondo. Eu achei que era bom demais para ser verdade. E aí aconteceu uma confusão e tal. Vamos lá, eu vou dar play aqui e você me diz o que você acha aí nos comentários.
during your deposition, what were the circumstances under which you decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Under somebody call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition.
Oh, I think. Okay. So I think it was in the context. I think it was you probably should read the context of it, because I think the context was, and I'm trying to think back. and I'm trying to think back, okay? And what I thought it was related to was if you're coming to some deposition, okay? And again, I'm thinking back, so you have it in front of you. I don't. So I'm thinking back where he's coming in from Europe for a deposition, video deposition that he gave, and he took it overnight the night before. And what I think I said was that if you're going to do a major thing to a trial that you're involved with, I think you'd be an idiot to come in the night before.
All right.
So I didn't call Mr. Depp an idiot. I certainly called that planning an idiot. I didn't call him an idiot.
Então, sim, ele chamou ele de idiota, tá? E aqui ele tá tentando sabonetar, né? Tentando sabonetar para dizer que não chamou Johnny de idiota, mas sim foi o planejamento dele. Fica melhor.
Idiot are mistranscribed.
No, I'm sure, again, if I said it in that, if you just read one line, one snippet, I'm sure it was in the context I just said. But again, you have it in front of you, I don't.
Yeah. Is idiot a professional opinion?
I wasn't running professional opinion.
Yeah.
No.
Is it a psychiatric opinion?
And that follows the Goldwater rule.
Caralho, não, aí é sacanagem, cara, como assim, mano? Ele tá perguntando aqui, você chamar os seus pacientes de idiota é um diagnóstico psiquiátrico? Aí falou, ó, se eu falasse isso, você cairia na regra Goldwater Rule. E aí tem um cara que dá uma gargalhada aqui no tribunal, velho. Mano do céu, isso não é um julgamento, isso não é um tribunal, isso já é um circo.
Oh, you just said that. I'm not rendering a professional opinion. I just said idiot. That's not a...
No, so idiot is not a professional opinion. Mm-hmm. Is it your practice to describe people as idiots?
In my practice, in my practice? No, I don't describe my clinical cases as idiots or patients as idiots or victims as idiots. No, sir.
But you sat for a deposition in this case and described the plaintiff as an idiot, correct?
You gave me 9 hours of deposition, and if I said the word idiot, it was an idiot in planning. It wasn't making him an idiot. I don't know Mr. Depp's IQ. I don't know his overall functioning. So therefore, if I said it, it was an idiot in planning, which is what I meant to come across as.
Pois é, eu falei pra você que não era clickbait. Ele falou mesmo. E assim... é um circo. Isso é um circo. Pois é, meus amigos. E assim, o Wayne fez um trabalho assim magnífico, como vocês puderam ver, em mostrar que esse cara não é um expert que ele diz que é. E mostrou que ele não tem nenhum artigo, não tem uma participação, não tem nada em relação sobre isso. Essa ideia de ter colocado o Golden Water Rule foi genial, porque basicamente descredita tudo que ele falou ali. Estou ansioso para ver no que isso vai dar. E é o seguinte, se você gostou desse vídeo, ou se pelo menos te informou de alguma maneira, curte. Se você ainda conhece alguém que está do lado da Amber até esse ponto, pouquíssimo provável que aconteça, mas se tem, pega esse vídeo, compartilha com essa pessoa, porque cada dia que passa tá se enrolando cada vez mais na sua própria forca. E eu acho pouco. E é isso. Tamo junto.
The bubbles we holding, I lick it down. If it's a problem, I go to the bar and I shut it down. Get out my section, don't bother with lames. I'm watching these bunnies bounce. Shorty, your 10, the rubber band, come on for the 100 pound.